You're listening to The Ununited State of the World with Francis, Jay, and Monique, only on LA Talk Radio.
How's it going, Los Angeles and the world? Welcome back to the Ununited State of the World podcast. I'm Monique Lore Stinson. My co-host today is Francis Vigours, coming from London, the UK. And our third is in a real estate convention. I think he's speaking in Miami. So we want to give Jay lots of luck, love, and I hope that he really rocks it and gets the results he wants at the conference. Welcome back to the States, or to your stateside, Francis. Welcome back to London.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, back from 35 straight into 9 degrees. So yeah, a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, your body's like, what is going on?
Yeah. But you've got crisp, clean air here, blue skies at the moment. So it's you feel very kind of like refreshed and awake. Yeah. And in Southeast Asia, it's high humidity, high temperatures, and it makes you feel like, I just want to get into some air-conditioned space somewhere. So yeah.
Yes. And you were traveling. I mean, listen, I said this before, I think on the other show, I find Europeans really amazing in the way that you guys vacation, you holiday. And I think that, you spending a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks there really inspires me. I need to learn how to vacation properly. I just don't.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that today, actually, looking around. It's a Sunday, obviously, so people are relaxing. They're driving their classic cars around, driving their sports cars. They're on their bikes. They're walking their dogs. And you don't see any of that in Southeast Asia. You just don't. People just don't have hobbies or pastimes. They're too busy working, not earning enough to really survive. So it's a real culture shock from that point of view. If you want a little bit of an eye-opener, go and see how the average man lives in Southeast Asia. And these are the guys that are making everything for us to consume and getting paid basically sweet FA for doing it, really. All the bikes and, all the things that people are using over here, they come from that part of the world, from a factory. And those good people over there have been on the production line making these goods for us to use in our leisure time, of which they don't get any. So yeah, it is a wake-up call.
Yes, and I really love your you traveling and bringing that perspective back, because that's the whole point of travel, really, is just getting integrated with people's culture, how they live, and what's happening, and you can really see just how blessed, how lucky, how whatever the word is for whatever you want to use, but how well we're doing, all right, even though we've got a lot of stuff we're going to cover right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the war, on the dollar at the moment. So dollars are being printed and exchanged for real physical goods that use real materials that have been mined, they've been processed, they've gone to the factory. The workers have forged those materials into something like a bicycle, for example, or a lawnmower. That's been exported to the US, largest consumer market in the world. And they've taken these dollars for the goods, and the US is just printing and printing as 1 trillion every 96 days, something like that. So treasuries are being raised, and the Federal Reserve buys the treasuries, from the Treasury Department. More and more dollars going, into the system, and they've had enough. Which is why we're seeing, the BRICS and the breakaway mental concept. Yeah. They've just gone, no, we can't store our wealth in the dollar because you're printing too many of them. You're debasing the currency. So guess what, guys? We're going to store our wealth in gold, and we're going to use that, and we're going to start trading amongst ourselves, and we're not going to use the dollar system, and we won't use the SWIFT system. We'll develop our own system, which is what they're doing, and they're launching it right now. So yeah,
okay.
Changing world.
Breaking news. Listen, Francis travels and he brings back the tea. He's got the piping hot Queen's tea, and thank you. I mean, listen, there's got to be reinvention in anything, right? I mean, we're reinventing all the time, crypto and all these things. But Francis, I want to get deeper in what you're talking about, but we have a certain amount of time, and I know you're very excited to speak on this topic because you've done your homework. So I'm going to shift gears here if you don't mind. we're going to talk about Brexit today, guys. We're a new show, okay? So some of our topics might be backdated, but because of who we have on our platform, I want to utilize our sources and our eyes on the ground. And as you guys have, if you haven't gathered from the former shows, this is our 5th episode. Francis is our UK resident, and we are looking to him to kind of be our eyes and ears there, although I'm there quite often. Francis is the expert. Jay is covering the East Coast and other areas, but he's our East Coast. I'm West Coast and other areas as well, but that's just a demographic of the show. Before we get into Brexit, Francis, breaking news, okay, on ABC, the BBC, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Reuters. So I'm going to cover all the outlets so everybody knows. Everybody's covered it, okay?
On the United States of the world as well now. So
I know. And you know what? I'm going through this journalism class at NYU and Rolling Stone to kind of just be more efficient. So that's my intention of listing all that.
So what's happened now then?
Oh, well, hold on now. Grab your crumpet and tea.
Oh, yeah, my scone, yeah.
You got your scones. It's just, I mean, our show couldn't be more timely, Francis. The un-United States news, breaking news from all those outlets into your living room right now and couch is that former President Donald Trump was golfing in West Palm. There's a Palm Beach and a West Palm, and I guess it's separated by a bridge. I've never been to either one, but he was golfing at his golf club there in West Palm, and there was an assailant with a rifle. Do not quote me. I do not know what kind of gun it was. I don't want to give you false news here.
Yeah.
But there was shots fired in his vicinity and very close to him. So all these independent and cable news sources are all agreeing for once in a long time that this has happened. He's safe, everybody. So that's great news. Here at the Ununited, we don't wish anyone harm. Francis, what is going on? Has it been 90 days since the first one?
Your first question, being a golfer, did anyone shout 4? That's a shot game.
You know what? No, it's 2 right now. This is the second attempt. We haven't gotten to 4. I hope we don't. But that, you guys, that's the Benny Hill sense of humor.
Well, I take it they missed, right? Yeah, they missed.
He's well, and no one else is hurt. So that's good news. We don't want anyone hurt.
I can't say I'm surprised because I just don't think the deep state want that man alive. It's not a laughing matter really, but
we're laughing to keep from crying because it's kind of
no, it's deeply serious, obviously. I mean, very, very deeply serious, and it's appalling. I'm not surprised. Various people said there would be an attempt on Donald Trump's life, and now this is what seems like a second attempt. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a third and a fourth, and some group don't want that man to be alive.
And that's what you're sticking to, right, Francis? You believe that?
Yeah.
All right, now let me offer something.
I think it's fairly obvious, really. I think it's just common sense. I mean,
well, okay, right, but you're saying it's a group that's targeting him, right? So but I have a different way I'm kind of looking at this, and tell me what you think. And by the way, I'm leaning over like a hunchback because the light, I'm a hunchback of Notre Dame, but it's because the light is glaring and I
can see that. Yeah.
I do need to go to the chiropractor. But anyway, I go down this rabbit hole with me a little bit, Francis. Take a couple more minutes on this topic. It's a big deal. I want to just preface by saying I am no 45 fan. However, I think sometimes I understand why some people support him. I do not. I understand why some of the world looks at him as a symbol of financial security and strength and power. I understand that some people find him to be powerful. And I really do get that. With that being said, I choose to kind of just say this. I still do not wish the man harm. I do not want him to die. I just want him to go away. I want him to go golfing in Thailand or whoever will have him. I just don't want him around. me in my world.
Well, yeah, okay. What about RFK Jr.? Do you want him to go away? Elon
No,
Musk? Do
I
you want
want
him
to
to
hear
go away?
more.
Because they're kind of like forming one big club at the moment. So these are all very significant people in the
Well,
United
listen,
States,
yeah. No, I
and
don't want our.
they're all choosing to align themselves with him at the moment. And from what I can see, more and more people are choosing to align themselves with him. There must be a reason for that. And you've got a clear 4 years of Trump being president. You've got a clear 4 years of Biden being president, nearly, right? And you've got,
That was
like for
shady.
like,
I caught that shade.
yeah, you've got apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and you can look at so many things and do a direct comparison now. And I think people are doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's a good listen. That's why we're the ununited state. We respectfully have different viewpoints. I want to just tell you guys that to Francis's point about that, there have been many Republicans, and I want to just say there's old school Republicans that have distanced themselves recently. And I gotta say, it's gotta probably be challenging, right? Because here you have someone that is some people think he's a divisive figure. Some people think he's a peacemaker. Some people think he's great at making deals. I'll leave it to the people to say. But you have this figure and you have a party, right? But it's kind of like the old school Republicans must be feeling like, dang, I'm really not quite all the way with him, but I'm also not
Yeah,
really, you know what I mean?
I think that's because they're a part of the Uni Party, which is, you've got red, you've got blue, and then you've got this core in the middle. It doesn't matter which party they're from, but they're aligned with the military industrial complex. They're aligned with big pharma. And they're also really, really wealthy. And, they've generated that wealth quite often through decades of being a politician. So you've got to ask yourself, these are the guys that are entrenched. Yeah, that's it. They're representing the forces that are behind the puppets, behind the masks.
Yes.
Donald Trump, is an outsider. He hasn't been a career politician, and I think that's
I don't
really why
know.
the deep state really don't like him. I think now he's becoming a career politician. Because he kind of like learned the ropes, really. He's
I
been
think you're
through the
right to a
mill.
point. Yeah. No, I
It's
think
a
he has
comeback.
been a
It's a
politician.
comeback, isn't it? He's kind of like the champ. Who got up there and then he got knocked off, and he's gone back to the gym. He's worked out, really, really hard, and he knows where he slipped up last time around, and he's back with a vengeance. And that's how it appears to me. It's like a Rocky movie, isn't it?
No, but but
No.
you can think that. Not the Rocky movie I've seen. I'm thinking more like First Blood
Yeah. It's
Rambo.
Eye of the Tiger. I think he's got the Eye of the Tiger, and I think that's why these
Oh,
people have aligned
right.
themselves with him. I mean, Elon Musk, Eye of the Tiger, right? RFK Jr. I think he's a fantastic individual as far as I can see from a foreigner over here.
I would like to learn
And
more about him.
his own party chucked him out, right, for speaking out against big pharma. So
Well,
yeah,
you're right. We have a two-party system, and you're right.
follow
There's
the
not a lot of
crumbs, follow
room.
the breadcrumbs. You'll get there.
Well,
Follow the money, you'll get there.
well, good. So that's a great, macro view from away, and still a cousin of ours. But I want to say, I'm just really trying to understand what we don't understand. I mean, if we look at this in a business sense, right? Like if you have a certain amount of write-ups in HR, or you've got some activity that's questionable or fraud or misconduct, you're out of that company. All right.
Yeah,
There's only going to be a couple times. I don't know what kind of signal it shows the world if our presidential candidate, former president, is being shot at every 90 days or whatever the hell the number is.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know what kind of
listen,
does that show that we have confidence in his competence?
Yeah. Well, they tried to bankrupt him. They tried to jail him, and now they're trying to kill him. So yeah, somebody definitely doesn't want him in that presidential seat, right?
Oh, got it. So you feel like he's a victim, and he just showed up, and all these bad things started to happen. Is that how you feel about it?
Well, yeah. I mean, having listened to people that have broken all of this information down, what's been happening, I'm not a voter. I'm not a US citizen. I'm not going to vote in the election. So it kind of like doesn't really mean that much to me. But actually, I think it does, because it really is going to affect the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And the politicians are totally out of control in Europe, in the UK. And all of this really has started from the US. They need to be rounded up, gathered up, pulled back, whatever it is, chucked out, I think, because there's no reforming. They cannot be reformed. You know, their interests, yeah, they've just got to be chucked out. That's it, and start again. You know, this kind of like drain the swamp. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. And, you know, the only thing, you know, if Trump does win, you know, he's going to inherit the huge debt that you guys have. It's massive. It's a huge, huge, huge problem. It really is a massive problem. And, you know, he's going to have to deal with that. And, you know, it may end up being quite a hollow victory for him if he wins. And it's an enormous task, absolutely enormous task, you know, to deal with that.
You're right. You're right. No, you make
Whoever wins
points.
is going to have to deal with that. It's just that I think he will try to deal with it. Whereas I think if the Democrats win again, they'll just run the country into the ground, print the dollar until it's toilet paper, worthless. Nobody will accept it. And your guys, your standard of living is just going to go straight down the toilet, unfortunately.
You think that?
That's
you
how
really
I see
think
it.
That, Francis?
Yeah, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. And lots and lots of other people that are far smarter than me. Mm-hmm. You know, I've listened to them, and these are their views. I mean, why is gold going up like it is? Why?
Well, so is silver, right?
Why?
I mean, listen. Well, we can. Bitcoin has a lot to, you know, cryptocurrency has
a
lot.
But central banks are not buying Bitcoin. Central banks are not buying. It's not a tier one asset.
But that's
they don't want
it
on their balance sheet. They're not buying it. They're not buying it. It's a speculative asset that you know, plenty of people have earned an absolute fortune from. But where it goes from here, you know, it could be cancelled. I mean, they cancelled it in China. You know, it could be cancelled. You know,
oh, we're not holding China.
The banks are buying gold. The banks are buying gold.
We're not gonna...
The banks.
Okay.
The banks are buying gold. They're buying gold. They're the biggest buyers, not the public. When the public wake up to it, the price of gold, goodness knows what it's going to go to. I mean, it can go 4, 6, 10, 20 times the value that it's at the moment, because if you look back throughout history, the amount of gold that's been held to underwrite the currency, to back the currency, has ranged from 20 to 40 kind of like percent. And if you look at the amount of currency that's in circulation now, the value of gold would have to rise 4, 6, 8 times to even be meaningful. So...
Well, this is why you're on the show, Francis. You take me down all these wonderful Alice in Wonderland rabbit holes, and there's so many things.
Yeah, but it's all right. It's not a rabbit hole. It's right in your face.
Today,
yeah, but it's happening today. You know, the central banks are buying this stuff. You know, the man in the street should ask himself, you know, do I need another pair of trainers? Not really.
AKA
I'll go and put some money into some gold. You know?
I'm translating for the people in LA.
Yeah.
All right, let me pause you here, Francis, before we get down the money, gold, and back. I just want to say one thing back about what you were saying about the deficit and things. And yes, there have been many causes and effects. I don't think that things are magically just happening. I don't think that things just magically happen to you. I think that there's cause and effect for everything. I think everything that 45 is experiencing is cause and effect in things that he's put into motion as well in his life. I do not think he's a backseat rider. I don't think that he's a victim. I think we all have cause and effect. We all have karmic things that happen. I think that, you know, when you do one thing, there's an action or equal reaction, right? Equal, you put in action.
Yeah, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but my point to you about this deficit thing, and then we're going to go to Brexit. I just want to leave you with this. I want to refresh everybody's memory. Francis might have forgot because he's in the UK. The last time a president inherited a debt like this was Bill Clinton, and he was a Democrat, and he left his term with what? A surplus. Okay, so let's remind ourselves.
You know what he did, don't you? You know what he did, don't you? He sold the United States out to China.
Okay,
he moved China in for the World Trade Federation, and all of the businesses went, "Oh, this is fantastic. We can offshore. We can cut our manufacturing costs, I don't know, in half, or just for about a quarter. We can get stuff made for a quarter over there, including shipping and taxes, than our manufacturing here." So they just sacked everybody here, closed all the factories, moved all the manufacturing base over to China, and therefore all the corporations made loads more money. Yeah, so they can pay higher dividends, pay more taxes.
What's the
The economy
difference?
looks good, but you end up where you are today with no manufacturing base.
Okay,
So,
got it. But let me see. By the way, you are speaking to something that is one part of the pie, and it's valid. But I want to say this: we have to give credit where credit is due. I do believe it takes time. You inherit the problems or the blessings of the former president in our country, and I do believe there is cause and effect, and there is a time. Like when I make casting calls, it's going to take me 2 weeks effort before I see a 2-week return of calls or emails. Okay. So it's the same thing with everything. So I think that you make good points, but that's one piece of the pie. I also want to note that, he did not do great things for the brown and black community when it comes to militarizing our police. He admitted it. He knew that the 3 strikes and all of it, and you shouldn't be doing crimes anyway.
Yeah, okay. 3 strikes
and
and you're out.
Crimes anyway. But petty little things that people do to make it, I don't think that don't harm. I think that let's just make it, let's do Brexit. I don't want to go down this hole with you, Francis.
Well, the trouble with the prison service in the US is it's privatized, isn't it? And they make a lot of money. The companies make a lot of money by housing prisoners effectively, and all big businesses lobby politicians. So you're back to the same old issue. You've got to drain the swamp, right? So
and maybe we need more thinkers like you in place. And you guys are going to hear me pushing this through the show. I'm going to keep pushing Francis to run for some kind of seat somewhere in his country. We need critical thinkers like you that aren't married. You're not moored to just one side. You know what I mean? You're willing to look at things. Let's pause it here. Let's clear the slate. And because we're going to talk about the prison industrial complex, we're going to talk about corporations using prison labor and making profits. We're going to talk about monitoring and all that in our next show. But right now, we're going to talk about Brexit.
Oh,
Francis didn't get to talk to us last week when we were traveling, and Jay was here talking about real estate. Francis, why don't you tell everyone what Brexit?
Brexit is something that we UK citizens have wanted for a long time, and we got promised in the Conservative manifesto that they would have a referendum on leaving the EU, because there's been a lot of infighting amongst the Conservatives for years. Many of the high-ranking politicians wanted to stay in. The ones that had kind of like vested interests, again, being lobbied by big companies that do a lot of business with Europe. Oh, we don't want to leave Europe, the single market. This is very good for us. And then a lot of MPs that just went, no, we want to row our own boat, thanks. We don't want to be subject to EU law. We don't really want to be in the European Court of Human Rights, the ECHR, which is the big issue at the moment, is that you can't just turn migrants around that land on your beach. You can't just say, back in your boat, mate, you're going back to where you came from. This is the problem. It's the ECHR. But no, so Brexit, I mean, we eventually got our referendum as promised in 2016. Shock and horror. It was a fairly even vote, but the Leave won. And it really was very unexpected. The Prime Minister resigned over it, David Cameron. So he came in 2010. The vote was 2016. So since 2010, we've had David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and now Keir Starmer. So we've had so many. It's just a joke.
The training wheels off, and you got to relearn how to ride the bike.
Exactly. So you imagine if you'd had that many presidents in that period of time. I mean, it's unheard of here, really, in the UK. I mean, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So the EU started started life out as the European Economic Community, the EEC, and we joined that because it was kind of like a trading club. We can sort of have these trade deals, and we can export more into Europe, and we can import French cheese, and we can export British beef, and it'd be good for everybody to be a member of this club. And that was fine when it was just about trade. But then it morphed into the EU. We joined the EEC in 1973, and we used to pay into it as a club member, but we were paying in a lot more because we had a quite high GDP back then, gross domestic product.
Cause and effect, everybody.
Yeah. So as a wealthier nation, we were paying into this club. We were paying a lot of money in. And in 1979, Margaret Thatcher, kind of like the most famous female politician in the world, really, probably still today, she went back and fought for a rebate. She went over and she gave them what for, and she came back with millions and millions of pounds.
A what for means she
in
really
a
gave
rebate.
it to them.
She really gave. The Iron Lady went over there, and they didn't. All politicians were men back then. They didn't really know how to deal with it, because
yeah, like, who's this? How did she get all this confidence?
Well, so she was the daughter of a sort of a general goods shop owner. So she helped run the shop, and so she started to look at the UK and think of it as the shop. You had to balance the books. You had to turn a profit.
Yeah. It is a business. Government is a business.
Well, it is. I know. Well, the politicians have lost sight of this now, but her mindset was it is a business. So if something didn't make sense, then you didn't stock it. You just chop that stock out. Get rid of it, sell it off, not order any more of that. The staff were playing up. You'd sack them. Employ a better staff member. And this common sense kind of like approach was fairly unheard of in politics at that point in time.
I miss common sense so much from people.
Well, it turned the country. Yeah, I mean, it turned the country around. That's what it did. It turned the country around. She did turn this country around. She made Great Britain great again. Literally, it's not like make America great again. She made Great Britain great again. And sadly, I mean, as an example, 1997, Tony Blair comes into power. Our economy, the British economy, was larger than China's and India's combined, put together. Right? It's nothing like that. It's just a fraction of China's or India's. So really, he had 9 years of just managing the slow decline. Well, it wasn't slow; it's quite fast, really. The decline of Great Britain and its economy. So 1993 the EU is formed. 1999 the euro comes out. We have a global crash, 2008, which we all know about. You guys had it over there. It was very hard, wasn't it?
And just to point out, the euro came out, and that's different from the pound sterling. Everybody, I have a pound sterling.
Yeah, we were in the EU at that point because we were in the EEC, and it just sort of carried over into the EU. But we didn't join. We decided to keep our own currency, which in hindsight was a very good idea, really. There aren't that many members of the EU that have kept their own currency. Some have. Some are kind of like half members, but they've kept their currency. So we didn't ever use the euro. This is a long story,
Well, let's highlight some of it. Let's fast forward because I like that, and just to add to what you're offering for, just to do a little, there are positives, as you mentioned. I think there's 27 members now of the EU, from Austria to Germany to France, Finland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and blah, blah, blah. And then we have, you guys have the economic uncertainty, the security and defense. I mean, aren't you stronger together? Isn't there power in numbers? Why do you vote alone?
You would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, the EU made all these rules for countries to join, and when they wanted Italy to join, they broke the rules. They broke their own rules to get Italy into the club, right? Italy really had to clean its economy up. Its economy wasn't strong enough. The books were not good enough of the Italian economy for Italy to join the EU, but they let them in anyway. Another thing they said is they'd never print euros. There'd always be, a bit like Bitcoin, there would only be so many euros in circulation. And of course, 2008, great financial crisis, what do? Printed euros. Yeah, so, I mean, they just, they made their own rules and they've broken them, which is typical European style anyway. I mean, the French are always doing that. They're always making rules up and then breaking their
We'll
own
have that
rules
little
when they
French
want
hat on
to.
today.
Yeah.
Bonjour.
But anyway, to
Yeah.
speed it all up. So, yeah, we voted Brexit. We voted to leave, but really we've never left, because the political establishment, if you like, the civil service, didn't want this to happen. So they've put every hurdle up. They've slowed the whole process down. The Europeans have made it really difficult for us to fully get out. It's like fighting an octopus. They've got tentacles all over you and all around you. You're just trying to get away.
Yeah.
And you can't. And lots of people thought, well, if Britain leaves the EU, then they can become a sort of an independent, strong trading nation. They can become maybe a tax haven. They're now free of the EU trade deals that the EU make as a bloc for all the EU nations. So no one EU nation can go and make a deal with India. The EU negotiate a deal with India for the whole bloc. Okay, so if we broke free, we could go to India, we could go to New Zealand, we could go to all these countries all around the world and make really good trade deals and kind of like become a trading, exporting nation how we used to be. I mean, the problem is we don't make much here anymore. So like, what have we got to export? Financial services, everything's been financialized, deindustrialized and then financialized. Financial services, they're our strong point. And the City of London really didn't want to leave the EU because they were handling a huge amount of transactions right across Europe every day and earning an awful lot of money from that.
Absolutely. I was going to say that.
So, there's a lot of vested interests that really, really didn't want this to happen. So, the country's voted to leave, but it's an absolute uphill battle to actually leave. This is the thing, because no one wants, all the politicians don't want this to happen. They don't want to implement it. They want to make it slowly make it as slow and difficult as possible, and over time make it so that you can look at it and say, well, we're actually worse off now. Now we've got Keir Starmer, who's basically trying to get us closer and closer back into the EU, and his ultimate goal would be to get us back in. As you say, as one bloc, are you stronger? Well, you could say that as one bloc, they've got more control over you. You've given your sovereignty up. EU law trumps your sovereign law. The European Court of Human Rights trumps everything. They've got this open migration policy. If anyone finds their way into Europe, you can't stop them moving all around Europe because there's no border checks. So this week, breaking news, Germany has closed the border. Now the Netherlands have just closed their borders.
Wow, that is breaking news.
Yeah, exactly. And
the Netherlands?
The Netherlands. And this is
hub.
All of this breaks. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Finish your.
I say all of this breaks the underpinning of the EU in that there was freedom of movement for everyone within the EU. So if you're Italian, you go to France, you could work in France.
No, you make a good point, and I did thank you because it's a lot, right? And I don't mean to hurry you up, but I want to say this: sovereignty, I totally get. The regulatory freedoms, I totally get. The immigration control, I totally get. Trade opportunities, I totally get. And you're right. When you get in, I don't get stamped. I mean, I get stamped once. I don't even think I get stamped anymore. I just go straight through London, and then I can go to the other 27.
Yeah, Schengen. You're in the EU zone, and now you can move around freely within it.
Amsterdam, and I like that. People can say, hey, let's close our borders. But if they're part of it, I understand a lot of that. I do get that you are wanting to, I don't know. I look at London as kind of like the hub for me, right? Like if I'm going to Asia or Europe, or excuse me, Asia or Africa, yeah, or even, yeah, that's the hub for me. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I can get to London and I can hub it out and I can get to New York or wherever I need to go from there. So I do look,
Yeah.
do you guys know that you're kind of the centralization of Europe? I mean, isn't that a plus? But you're saying it's a minus. What are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, obviously London, yeah, Heathrow, Gatwick, got two major international airports by London, but Paris as well is also,
Paris is
you
in
can fly
Amsterdam
to
as
any
well.
part of the world from Paris. They've got two big airports there as well. But what I would say about Brexit and the UK voting to leave, could you see this in the United States? Could you see secession? Could you
Absolutely.
see, at one point, California
Yeah.
was quite in favour of, breaking away. I mean, they're the world's
Lamb.
fifth largest economy, California, anyway. So they've certainly got the financial clout to stand on their own 2 feet and do that.
Thank
And
you.
now, of course, you've got Florida and Texas. They're sort of saying, do you know what? It's coming quite close to us not really being, it's not worth us being one of the United States. We could break away. There will be some difficulties in that. I'm not sure what they are, but it's things like if you're on a power grid which crosses into the other states and everything. There's other states, if you left them, could cut you off. There's all sorts of things that can happen to mess this up effectively. But it's the mindset of the people that, they're sort of saying, I've had enough of all this, down in Florida and down in Texas. Had enough of all this. Don't want to be a part of that lot. You get on with it by yourself. We'll stand on our own 2 feet. Thanks very much.
Are they saying that? I don't hear them saying that. I hear California saying because we can, like you said, we do have the clout to do it, and we can actually function as our own. We could be Puerto Rico. We could, but you guys, what are the negatives about you breaking away? I mean, you already did it. I mean,
Well,
obviously,
yeah. I mean, the negatives are things that could have been sorted out, but just haven't because there's been no political will there. So they've made it very, very difficult and cumbersome for businesses now to export into Europe. The amount of paperwork that you have to do and the additional cost and time involved in it all. They have gone out of their way to try and convince people over a period of time that there's actually no benefit in voting to leave.
I see what you mean. It's passive aggressive.
Yeah,
They're throwing
yeah.
it down to say,
I mean,
"See, we told you." But
well,
who's
the thing is,
together?
I mean, we were just sick to death being told what to do. Fundamentally, I mean, if it wasn't for us lot sticking it out during World War II. The French would all be speaking German. So would the Italians.
Francis, okay, but I don't want to go here. I don't want to go here on this show, but I'm just going to remind you. I don't have a Scottish last name because I happen to be Scottish, right? There's a lot of journey women and men in the British colony, the colonizers that love to go to other people's country and grab things and steal things and make things. Now you guys want to not be a part of the collective?
Well, I think you could say that about the French. They were colonizers. The Germans were colonizers. I mean, the Belgians, what they did in the Congo, don't even want to talk about that. I mean, I've seen pictures of horrific things, horrific things,
I mean,
so all the European nations were the same. The Spanish, the conquistadors, what they did in the New World, the Portuguese, yeah.
But we're talking about you.
All the same. But well, the thing is that yeah, well, the thing is that the United States is predominantly made of European settlers, so really
settlers
all us lot over here
settlers
basically went over where you guys are, right? So there's not a lot of difference between any of us, really. To be fair, we've all got history that goes back so far, and I think if you can trace anybody's bloodline back far enough, you'll find something pretty nasty, right? So they were nasty times, historically.
Thank you for saying that out loud and identifying that, because for some reason there's a lot of people that can't do that here, and I always will say and have said, Ellis Island was a choice. Being here and being the way I look was not a choice. I'm happy for the way I look, but I'm just saying it's another topic. But let's go back to your point about Brexit. Wasn't there a plan? Didn't we know that like anything else, change takes time? Rome wasn't built overnight. When you're changing to something, a new system, that guess what? You might have to go through 8 prime ministers until you get it right. You're taking the training wheels off.
Yeah, but there's no political will to make it work. That's the thing. Everyone voted for it, but the people that are in power and the civil service as well that are embedded, behind the politicians. The politicians come and go, the faces, but the civil servants are there. It's a job for life. They get a massive pension, and if you control the civil servants' mindset, then it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And I think Trump found this in his first presidency. The deep state just didn't want him there. And they just like, well, you can say you want to do this and that, but actually we're not going to do it.
Well,
we get the same in the UK. We get the same here. We get exactly. I mean, Liz Truss, she came in, like Prime Minister for 50 days, right? With a new financier guy, and she had this great big plan for growth and all this, but it meant borrowing money. Well, the markets didn't like it because whoever controls the markets decided that they didn't like it. And we had a mini kind of like financial moment here in the UK, and our own party just chucked her out.
It's kind of, it's familiar,
50
right?
days, 50 days, right? 50 days, right? Just chucked her out. And of course, she doesn't mind because she's now got £110,000 a year pension for life. So, what does she get?
So,
right?
So let me say what I think I'm hearing you say. What I think I'm hearing you say is, let's put her in. Let's do this favor that we owe. Let's show that we're female friendly. Maybe somebody owed her a favor. She'll get what she needs, and then we can put who we want in power. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think a lot of the, we've had so many PMs here that they just appear like stepping stones. They all get us one step closer to where let's call it the deep state, because I don't know what else to call it. Get one step closer to where the deep state wants us to be, and then they're the fall guy. They're out, and then somebody else is in, and it's just like musical chairs, sliding doors. But
it's reminiscent from the Trump campaign, quite frankly. I think every week somebody was getting fired. It was like the TV show, and
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. It's just name after name after name being fired, and I think that's just somebody's frustration at trying to get something done. And you hire people to do something, and it just doesn't get done, right? And that's also his entrepreneurial spirit. It's kind of like being on, you're fired. On a show where you've got the contestants, and they're all trying to get a job done, and you just fire one after the other, and then there's one left, and he wins the show. At the end of it, we've got one over here with like The Apprentice, Alan Sugar. And the buzzword is you're fired, with the finger poking at you,
Oh my
he
God.
gets 5 of them up, and he analyzes their performance, and he'll find the weakest link, the one that did the worst, and he'll just fire them.
The weakest link. Francis, no wonder the aliens won't beam us up. I mean, what is happening? When are they coming? What time is the rocket ship coming? I need on.
Ask Elon. I don't know. He's got all of the schedules for the rocket ships.
No, I don't want to go with Elon. I want to go with the aliens.
Yeah, he's the man. I think we need Elon on the show because with what's going on in Brazil and with X and him controlling the satellites overhead. Well, it's just like this is science fiction stuff, isn't it? Really. I mean, yeah.
We're going to talk about that too. Listen, you bring up this is what I love about Francis's brain, you guys. He doesn't just sit over there and drink beer and play ice hockey or whatever you guys think that British do. He is over there. He's not petting his bulldog all day. He is actually thinking and invested in the collective, right? And he shared that he has family, he has a daughter, and I really love your passion, Francis, and I don't think we could have had a better Brit to be on here, a better person over across the Atlantic. Thank you for doing this. Can you believe we're on episode 5? Just a little breather moment here for a moment. Episode 5.
Episode 5, yeah. Episode 5, yeah.
So there's so much more to talk about. And, again, we're missing Jay today. Shout out to We Aren't the Bank, We're Better. And shout out to EXP. If you have any mortgage or real estate needs, you can reach Jay Heckendoen-Telenda. And he's at Jay Heckendoen-Telenda on Instagram, Facebook, and just drop into his DM and say hi. And Francis, do you want to plug your business or anybody on the UK side that you want to give a quick plug?
Not at present. No, I've got nothing for anybody to link
You're not
onto.
selling nothing?
No, not really. If you're like me and you can't believe what's going on in the world, like an awful lot of my friends of a similar age to me that have got businesses that are really suffering now. Particularly due to our politicians' stance on net zero, and they're all marching towards wind farms and solar panels, in the northern hemisphere where the sun doesn't really shine, right? And on windy days, our electrical grid cannot take the power that these wind turbines produce. So our government takes taxpayers' money and they pay the wind farm to turn them off. Millions a day,
Okay, here you go again,
this is where we are. It's just
guys,
nuts.
do you see what I'm talking about, you guys? Francis needs to run for office.
It's just nuts. It's just nuts. So we're watching the price of oil go down, and we're watching the price of electricity and gas here in the UK go up. And the guy that runs British Gas is on £4 million a year, and they've just given him a £4 million pay increase. He's now on £8 million a year.
We need more
£8 million
time.
a year for putting the price of gas up.
Okay, can we put this in the log where we talked about this? I got to keep you on track, Francis, because I love your passion, but got to get back to we have 4 minutes left. What you're saying is, I want to dive into that. Please email that on the sheet because we've got to cover that. I want to hear more about it. I think that there's some pluses on solar, but I want to hear more about what you have to say about the windmills. So before we sign out, I want you to give us, we got 1 minute. Closing thoughts on Brexit. What do you see for the future? Because here's the last thing I'll say. The people voted for it. Is there a leader for the people that had a game plan on how to implement it? What's the future of Brexit and your view for trade and all of that and security? You got 1 minute here to try.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so with Nigel Farage was a European member of Parliament, and he fought for Brexit, and he spearheaded the Brexit campaign here in the UK. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have voted to leave. He uncovered all of the corruption at EU level, the waste, all of the silly laws. He's just spending, huge expenses, massive expenses, for these European members of Parliament. And he 4 weeks or 4.5 weeks before we had our election here, became the leader of the Reform Party, and he's managed to get, I think, 6 members of Parliament here at the election, last minute, literally last minute. And the Labour got in, they got total control on one of the lowest votes that they've ever had. I mean, Keir Starmer got fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn, who lost last time around. So the Conservative voters didn't bother to turn up to vote because they're so disheartened with their party. They couldn't bring themselves to vote Labour. The Reform Party didn't have candidates in all of the wards. They were kind of like cobbled a few together. They did very well, and he's now going to build a party, and hopefully he'll come to power at the next election if they don't shoot him.
Copy. Guys, that's Francis Vigours with all the tea. And you know what? Thank you. We have to wrap. We're going to absorb that. I want to revisit a lot of our topics, Francis. So maybe we'll come back and give another 50 minutes to this. But great feedback there. You guys, please be safe. We do not wish any harm on anybody that's, anywhere. Let's be careful with our words, our intentions, and mind the universe and karma. Be kind to one another and be safe. Happy Emmys evening. I'll see you guys back here at 4:00 Pacific for the startup with Monique Lore. Francis, be safe. Welcome back to the UK.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll see Jay, Francis, and myself next week. Be safe, everybody.
Take care.
Stay united.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to The Ununited State of the World with Francis, Jay, and Monique, only on LA Talk Radio.